Hey, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Fanzone Debate. We are here for another match. You saw a couple matches earlier that have now combined to come to this match. You got Jack Pinchuk going up against Joe Farrelly. Jack Pinchuk went up against Brooklyn Vale in a very good season opener. I thought they both played really great, but Jack came out with the win. And on the other side of things, you had Richard Schwartz going up against Joe Farrelly, and Joe taking him out in a pretty decisive 3-1. It was a really, really great match for Joe. So it's going to be interesting to see Jack, obviously last season, playing really well, getting himself to a contender match last season. Can he do it again? Because the winner of this match does move on to a contender match. Joe, never been to the contender match ring in Fanzone Debate. So will he be able to find that success that he's found in Fandom and other leagues? So on the desk tonight, we got Mark Menchaca. Mark, how the hell are you?
I'm doing pretty good. Yeah, this one should be fun. We got two guys who were coming off of a pretty decent season last year, and then both of them starting off pretty well, impressive wins. They both seemed a bit more polished than they were last year, so I think we're in for a good one.
I would agree with that. On the other side, we got Nick Twohig returning to the judge's seat. Nick, how are you doing, and what do you think of the matchup?
My throat, it hurts, and so I sound weird. But I can sing really low notes now, so it's exciting.
Man River.
Maybe lock them doors and turn the no, I'm excited. I've heard both of these people talk about things in various forms, and that's really all this is people talking about things. So, and then I get to pick who's right, and I like that.
That's fair. All right, so we are going to kick this off. We're going to start by talking to Joe, as he is the lower ranked player. Joe, excellent match against Richard. You're now going up against Jack. Thoughts about taking on Mr. Pinchuk, who I actually haven't been mean to yet tonight. Crazy.
Yeah, I wasn't planning on being mean either, to be honest. It's going to be interesting. I think Jack and I have very different tastes in. I think he's definitely more on the sort of the classics and all that sort of side, and I'm sort of definitely more on the geeky side of things. So I think it's going to be interesting. It's a very difference in opinion. So I just hope that I can, it'll be fun. I'm going to spend an hour arguing about stuff that doesn't really matter, and then we're all going to go to bed.
Yeah, that's fair. So we'll bring in Jack. Jack, you also had a very good match in your last match, but now you're going up against Joe. If you were playing Fandom, I would pray for you. But hey, you got a shot here, Jack. How are you feeling?
I feel scared. Joe is scary no matter where you play him. I've played him in Fandom teams and lost in sudden death to him when Anyone Can Cook was a team. I played him in melee singles and lost to him there a couple seasons ago. So hopefully I can get a win against him somewhere. That would be nice.
Yeah. Well, we'll see what happens, guys. This is how the show is going to work. The players drafted categories, and then Jesus Christ. Then we gave them questions based on those categories, and they are going to debate those questions tonight. Before our very souls, they each get 1 minute to open, followed by a 5-minute freeform, followed by a 1-minute closing at the end of the debate. Nick, Mark, and I will write on our handy-dandy boards who we thought won the debate. If you get 2 out of 3 votes, you win the point, and if you get the first person to 3 points wins the match. So if we are tied up after the 4 prep round questions, we will move on to a sudden death style speed round. So any questions from the players? Great. Then let's do this thing. All right, so the first of the questions is going to be in the category of Oscars, and this was drafted by Jack. The question is, what classic Oscars year had the best movies represented? How stimulating. So, Jack, you get 1 minute to open your argument when you start talking. I will come in to give you the 10-second warning when the time comes.
The Oscars, it should be said, are always getting it wrong. However, there are a few years that stand out among the rest of times when the Academy actually acknowledged the best of its year. And if we're looking at the classic era of Hollywood specifically, I think there's no better representation of that than for when they awarded films released in 1962 at the 35th ceremony. Technical masterpieces like Lawrence of Arabia and Mutiny on the Bounty, to acting masterclasses like To Kill a Mockingbird, Days of Wine and Roses, which many consider to be Jack Lemmon's best performance, The Miracle Worker, Whatever Happened to Baby Jane, Birdman of Alcatraz, and then you get a couple other movies that don't really fit into either category, but are hailed as really well done films nonetheless, like The Music Man and Divorce Italian Style. Just quality from top down, incredible shit.
Time. All right. Joe, we're going to move over to you. You have 1 minute to open when you start talking.
I chose the Oscars of 1951. This movie's released in 1950. Just a brief look at the movies represented at the 1951 Oscars give you such a variety of incredible movies. You have The Third Man, an incredible thrilling mystery movie that really sticks that landing which you need with a mystery thriller. All About Eve, an all-time classic with one of the greatest villain performances of all time. Harvey, one of the most heartwarming films of all time. Cyrano de Bergerac, a story so timeless it's sort of still being adapted to this day. And Sunset Boulevard, Billy Wilder. I don't even think I actually need to talk about how perfect a movie like Sunset Boulevard is. And I think not only is it the year that has the best movies represented, the classic year that has the best movies represented, I think it has that variety of great movies. And I think if you're looking at the best movies, you want that variety in there. You want to be able to absorb different points of view and different stories and different performances and different technical achievements.
Time. Okay. All right, guys. 5 minute free form when one of you starts talking. I will throw up the 1 minute warning when the time comes, and I will come in for that 10-second warning. If I feel like we're droning on too long, I'm going to throw up that let's move on. And for the love of God, if I have to shut you up even more and say let your opponent talk, I'll throw that up. But if you don't listen to any of that, I will send Nick Twohig to your house to kill you.
Does he have a passport?
Yes, I believe he does. So 5 minute free form when one of you starts talking.
Let's talk about some of the movies that came out in 1962, 1963. Well, I think, you've got Lolita. The only standout there really is Sellers. Music Man is a 2.5-hour musical with a cast that can't sing.
Okay, if you're gonna throw Lolita, which got 1 Oscar nomination, and is what is still a very good Stanley Kubrick movie, by the way, and The Music Man at me, I'm gonna throw Born Yesterday, which is fine. It only has Billie Holiday's performance to keep it afloat. I'm going to throw Cyrano de Bergerac, which has been done better since then, especially a couple years ago with Peter Dinklage.
It's because you want to emulate it. Let's talk about Lawrence of Arabia, shall we? In my opinion, I think it's a 2.5-star movie where you could replace the lead with a piece of wood and you wouldn't know the difference.
I see what you did there.
Oh no, wait, sorry, that was your letterboxd review of the movie you just called a masterpiece, but it's fine.
Yeah, a technical masterpiece. There are very few movies that are well
2.5-star technical masterpiece.
Well, when you have there's more movies than Lawrence of Arabia that came out in 1962 that were represented. To Kill a Mockingbird is one of the greatest films of classic Hollywood, or just of all time. With one of the
want to talk about that story being done. You want to talk about that story being done better? You can read the book. That is the story being done better.
Okay, the book is better than the movie has been said so many times. That is a tired argument.
Doesn't mean it's not true.
Okay, but even then, with the movie, that is the best possible version of the movie to come out that could be made. Gregory Peck is the perfect Atticus Finch. There is no one else that could play that role as good as him. All About Eve, Sunset Boulevard, and The Third Man are the only movies from that year that I would call really great. Whereas in the that stand out. Whereas this one, you have The Miracle Worker, which is an incredible which has not just one, but two incredible performances with Patty Duke and Anne Bancroft, both winning Oscars for their performances. Whatever Happened to Baby Jane is one of the greatest psychological horrors ever made. And you get an even better Betty Davis performance in that movie than you do in All About Eve. Birdman of Alcatraz is an incredible Burt Lancaster performance. There's some great movies here, and you get an incredible foreign film with Divorce Italian Style, which is a really dark comedy that has some great comedic beats in it. And yeah, you have a few movies in your year that are great, whereas I have several that are really good to really great.
Well, you said there were only three standouts, and we'll go back to your Anne Baxter performance. You again in your own letterbox you called it the all-time villain performance, but we'll move on from that. We'll talk about the other movies. You said there were three standouts, so I can give you more. There's Father of the Bride, again another story that's still being adapted these days. King Solomon's Mines, Cinderella, for God's sake, Cinderella. You talk about movies that stand out and don't stand the test of time. You didn't even mention Cinderella, which stands the test of time. Annie, Get Your Gun, again still being referenced. You bring up Harvey, again one of those fantastic another great Jimmy Stewart performance. You've got all these sort of different things that give you the different things. You get the technical aspects, you get that sort of the compelling score aspect of The Third Man, you get these other sort of like fantastic different performances, different all the sort of the cinematography of going around of something like Cyrano de Bergerac, just the thrilling nature and that psychological aspect of Sunset Boulevard. All these different things give you so many different aspects, and they're all timeless classics.
You're going to throw the score of The Third Man at me, which fine, whatever. Then I'll throw the score of Lawrence of Arabia back at you. I called Anne Bancroft's performance in that movie in All About Eve one of the greatest villain performances of all time, because it is. But you get an even better villain performance from Betty Davis in Whatever Happened to Baby Jane. You get an incredible remake of Mutiny on the Bounty, which won Best Picture in 1935, and the remake was nominated again and was awarded in several categories as well. Birdman of Alcatraz, Divorce Italian Style, The Music Man is widely regarded as one of the best musicals of that year and has been improved upon since then, sure, on stage, but that movie is still excellent.
I think when you're sort of looking at the best movies that are being represented, yes, you have some great technical achievements and some great performances, but I think when you look at the movies from 1951, you get that combination of them. You get the great technical aspects and you get those great performances all in one. Like you said, Lawrence Weber had the great technical bits, but not so much great performances. And the other movies had great performances, not so much on the technical aspects, but with 1951, you get them combined, and that's why they're the best.
Time. Okay, Joe, you're going to start this off for closings. You have 1 minute to close your argument when you start talking.
I think when you're looking at classic years, classic movies, it's not just the movies as a whole. You also have to look at the directors and the actors associated with that. And it's 1951 is still them doing their best work. It's not just, not only does 1951 trump 1963 in terms of quality, it trumps it in terms of quantity as well. You get the best work of Billy Wilder, of Jimmy Stewart, Orson Welles, Spencer Tracy, Elizabeth Taylor. You can try and defend 1963 all you want. By your own admission, even the best movie of that year is only 2.5 stars. And I think that's the biggest issue with it. I think when you're looking at the technical aspects and the performances, yes, 1963 has some movies with great technical aspects and great performances. But when you combine them together, that's the movies of 1951. It's the combination of that work. The work of the great technical aspects from these great directors and also these great performances from these people that I've just mentioned. That's the difference there. You have that combination, and that's why it trumps 1963.
Okay. Ending a few seconds early. We are going to move over to Jack. Jack, you have 1 minute to close your argument when you start talking.
Even if I don't personally love Lawrence of Arabia like everyone else, there's no denying that it has left its mark on film in general. And that's just one movie represented at that Oscar ceremony. You get To Kill a Mockingbird, which is one of the best courtroom movies ever made. You get Days of Wine and Roses, a gripping tale of alcoholism with an incredible performance from Jack Lemmon and an equally incredible performances from Lee Remick. You get The Miracle Worker, the story of Helen Keller. You get Patty Duke and Anne Bancroft fucking killing it in that movie. You get Whatever Happened to Baby Jane, one of the greatest psychological horror movies ever made, and with a better performance from Bette Davis than in All About Eve. You have 3 great standouts, whereas I have a solid 8 to 10 here of really good to great movies. If you want to talk incredible screenplays, you've got Divorce Italian Style. You want to talk a technical marvel, Lawrence of Arabia, it's fantastic.
Fantastic. Strike it from the record. All right, we're gonna bring in the judges. Is Jack wearing a bathrobe?
I'm cold. Okay.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure I wasn't. Just wanted to make sure I wasn't crazy
It's
on that.
cold in this basement.
I always figured that was your bedroom.
It is my bedroom, but it's
Oh,
in
they
the
keep you down there. Got it.
Walks into that one.
Yep.
My answer starts with a J.
What's the second one?
A vowel.
All right.
Circular in one way or another.
Okay, I'm going first, and I went with Joe because I haven't seen like any of these fucking movies, man. Like I've seen a couple of them that you mentioned. I recognize names of things, but I needed to be, which it's a tall task. It really is, because I don't know the movies. You have to tell me why these movies are the best. Like all of your movies are better than all of the movies of the other one, and I found that Joe was able to convince me that the quality and the quantity of his movies were better. But again, it was kind of like a crapshoot because, like, yeah, like Lawrence of Arabia, everyone knows that movie. But, like, what else is there? Like, what else is going on? So I went with Joe. Mark.
Yeah, and this one, I think at least parts of this we kind of got in the weeds of just kind of listing movies that were nominated, and like I mean and I think kind of at least I'm leaning Joe. Like I feel like both were pretty close. I think at the very least, like you guys at least did a pretty good job of kind of saying why your stood out. I think I just leaned Joe at the end because I think he did a better job of explaining how I think his was probably the more diverse list. And I think he also had he also mentioned, at least in his closing, about how he had a bunch of movies that were some of the best for some of the classic filmmakers of that day, at least actors and directors. So for those, just like kind of it's tiny points, I had him going Joe.
Okay, Nick, your vote doesn't count. Where would you have gone and why?
I also said Joe. Same. They got 12 movies in, and I was like, nope. And then someone said The Miracle Worker, and I was like, I know that one. And To Kill a Mockingbird, why not? My biggest thing was, like you said, Joe, was like, my movies have all good parts that make them good movies. And Jack sort of doubled down in his closing when he was like, you want a great screenplay? Watch this one. You want a great acting performance? Watch this one. Which, true, and makes them good, but like it kind of fed into what Joe was saying. So.
Okay. All right. So Joe wins that point. So we are going to move on to the next question, which is going to come to you in the category of Jimmy B, James Bond. All right. Your question is, if they were to remake a James Bond movie, which one deserves it the most? Joe, you get to kick this one off. You got 1 minute when you start talking.
When you look at the history of remakes, you look at what makes a successful remake. Remaking a good movie kind of sets you up to fail. You look at movies like RoboCop and Old Boy, Psycho, Ghostbusters. They sort of prove this. But when you take a movie that had good ideas but poor execution, and you remake those, you have a hit on your hands. You look at The Fly, Ocean's 11, The Thing, Scarface, Cape Fear. A reimagining of a good idea with better execution. And for me, Quantum of Solace is a Bond movie that, for all its good ideas, you have Bond's emotional journey being learned through the adventure he goes on, plus the adventure with Camille. You have Bond going rogue, already been done, but also, it was done with better execution. With better execution, Quantum of Solace would go from the shortest Bond movie that feels like the longest to a respectable entry in the franchise and a strong follow-up to Casino Royale.
Okay. Shortest movie that feels like the longest. That felt so real. I feel that in my soul. Jack, 1 minute when you start talking.
When trying to figure out which of the Bond movies most deserves to be remade, you have to figure out which one most can be most improved from it. And I think that On Her Majesty's Secret Service has the bones of a truly great Bond film, but is trapped inside of a pretty good one. Pretty good one. You've got a great. You could have a great Bond performance with this being maybe the most emotion Bond has ever had to deal with everything that happens with Tracy, having to confront Blofeld and potentially take him out. You get Bond going rogue in this one. You get him resigning from MI6 before Moneypenny stops him. You've got the bones of what could be a truly great film. And you don't have to remake anything else to justify this one, whereas with Quantum, you do.
You do. Strike it from the record. Bond goes rogue a lot, doesn't he? Guys, 5 minute free form when one of you starts talking.
So my biggest issue, Joe, with remaking Quantum of Solace is Casino Royale leads directly into that, and you can't do a Quantum of Solace remake without touching Casino Royale in some way. And that movie is regarded by most Bond fans, including yourself, if I'm not wrong, as one of, if not the best Bond films. So why would you want to remake Quantum of Solace and potentially ruin a perfectly good thing with Casino Royale?
We're going to set up the parameters for how this remake is going to go. You have to look at what affected Quantum of Solace and why maybe it doesn't have that impact that Casino Royale and Skyfall, which fall obviously either side of this movie, do. And there's two main things, really. One, it was made during a writer's strike. You have these action sequences that were prepared and you didn't have a story to go with it. So that's one thing you can look at. The writers at this present time of recording are not on strike. So that's something that obviously could improve it with the better writing. Secondly, you have the fact that they had to have this organization Quantum because at the time, they did not have the rights to the organization Spectre. And that affects the whole through line, not just Casino Royale, but from Casino Royale to No Time to Die, affects the whole through line because they have to go jumping through hoops in Spectre to get everything to connect. So this is, again, little things that you can do to improve it. I don't think On the Majesty's Secret Service needs improving. You've had the Bond tragic love story 3 times now. On the Majesty's Secret Service, Casino Royale, No Time to Die. We have all the time in the world. One of the best Bond songs of all time. In 2 movies now, that is one of the things that just encapsulates the entire movie throughout the score and everything. And you're going to take that away from it?
Not at all. Not at all. You can still have We Have All Time in the World in this remake. Like, you don't have to do away with everything. You can have a better Bond, because let's be honest, George Lazenby, like, yeah, sure, he was good, but he's the worst of the Bonds. He's more. George Lazenby is more of a model than he is an actor. Whereas you can give this role of Tracy to a young actress, and she could do a lot with it. Someone like Anya Taylor-Joy could take this role and with the dialogue that is given to her, just absolutely kill it. Just name that popped into my head, doesn't have to be her, but yes, you can have a proper Bond. You can have some really good tension between Bond and Blofeld in this. A proper face-off between Bond and Blofeld, unlike what we got in Spectre. And it's not just like it's not just the lead up to like everything that was going on with Quantum of Solace that ruined that movie. It's the fact that they were bogged down with having to deal with the death of Vesper Lind, and having that happened in the middle of the writer's strike certainly didn't help things. So I'm
Why
sorry,
you can
but
now remake it now with, and that's why you could remake it now with hindsight. I think that's the thing. I think I can't see what you're improving with On Her Majesty's Secret Service, but with Quantum of Solace, you are improving that direction. You are making it more streamlined. You are fleshing out those ideas, and just because you're having better writers come in. And I think the other thing, maybe even a better director, just to bring that all together. You look at what Campbell, what Mendes, and what Fukunaga all managed to give to Daniel Craig's Bond, and Mark Foster just sort of it doesn't have that impact. And I think a remake, a reimagining with carrying on that through line from Casino Royale with the ability to bring in the Spectre organization, you just make it all move that little bit smoother.
You don't know what we're improving with On Her Majesty's Secret
You
Service.
haven't told me.
Yeah, it's a 2 hour and 20-minute movie that feels like it should be 30 minutes shorter. You can tighten that screenplay up. You can have more tension between Bond and Blofeld, and you can flesh out the story more with Bond and Tracy, because they're separated from a lot of that movie, and then the romance doesn't feel as authentic as real. Whereas in this one, if you tighten the story up, and you can improve those things. Whereas in On Her Majesty's Secret Service, yes, there's some good moments in it, but overall it just doesn't work. Where yours, you have to ruin a perfectly good thing with Casino Royale.
I don't think you're ruining anything. I think that's the problem with Quantum of Solace, is that because it does not carry on that story well enough, it doesn't necessarily bring Cinderella down, because it doesn't carry on that story well enough. It leaves you with that sour taste. Whereas if you can improve that movie, then you have a stronger story throughout the 5 movies.
Time. All right, Jack, we're going to you first. You have 1 minute to close when you start talking.
If you remake Quantum of Solace, I won't say it again after this. If you remake Quantum of Solace, you have to acknowledge Casino Royale, and having this take place immediately after Casino Royale, after the death of Vesper, with a completely different Bond, with a completely different everyone involved, it's going to feel weird. It's going to feel unnatural, and it's going to take a lot of people out of the movie. Whereas with On Her Majesty's Secret Service, you have the bones of a truly great Bond film, and when you tighten up the screenplay and focus more on Bond and Tracy, and the tension between Bond and Blofeld and everything there, you can make this one of the 5 best Bond films. Whereas with Quantum of Solace, there's nothing there to begin with, and I guess I don't get what Joe wants to do, because words. Stumbling.
Yeah, I got you. You're good. Joe, you now have 1 minute to close when you start talking.
On Her Majesty's Secret Service frequently ranks in the top 5 when you look across the highest rated Bond movies and when people rank movies. Remaking a good movie sets you up for failure. Success comes from remaking a good idea that was poorly executed. Quantum of Solace fits this bill perfectly, as it was adversely affected by that writer's strike and not having the rights to the biggest villainous organization in Bond's history. Not only would remaking Quantum of Solace positively affect the whole series by not having Spectre having to jump through those hoops to connect it all, but also you give that audience a little bit more satisfaction, a follow-up of what was such a great movie in Casino Royale. You're left with that sour taste. I think with better writers, better rights, and a better director at the helm, I think you can streamline this movie into stopping it from just dragging. It's an hour 50 and it feels like it's 2.5 hours. I think that's the biggest problem with Quantum Solace. If you're going to remake it, you can streamline it and make it more accessible to the audience.
Time. Okay. So we will bring in the judges. All right. Are you guys ready?
No. Okay.
All right. Nick, you're kicking us off whenever you're ready.
Sure. Right. So I said Jack. The point of the Casino Royale, the Casino Royale point, I thought was combatable. I didn't hear anything convincing enough that Joe said that like not hit that point. And beyond that, but they both were kind of pitching like On Her Majesty is long, and a reboot could, or a remake could tighten up that script. Whereas Joe said like mine's really short, but it feels really like they were both talking about fixing the errors of both of their films that I think they both do have. While I appreciate Joe's I think Joe started off on the better foot, like with the definition of why you do a remake. I actually agree with what he said there. It was I needed more points. I need more defense from Joe. So I didn't get that. So Jack is who I voted for.
Okay. Before I say who I voted for, it wasn't combated at all, and it didn't really add into why I voted for anybody, but I thought it was really funny at the end in the closings when Jack was like, this connects directly in from Casino, so you can't do it because it wouldn't make any sense. And I think the implication he was saying was that like because it would be a different actor or something. And Sean Connery plays Bond in the follow-up to On Her Majesty's Secret Service, in which he is avenging his dead wife.
Yeah,
Different Bond and in Diamonds Are Forever. And I literally wrote on my board Diamonds because I wanted to bring that up. And if Joe had said that, that would have been a huge dick punch. But he didn't.
Yes.
I still went with Joey Pants because I did have... He's not Joe Pantoliano, I know. But he did convince me that the Casino Royale issue wouldn't be an issue. And I did feel like his overall improvements, that like the bones of Quantum of Solace are good, but that with a better script and with all of the rights and with all the story stuff that you could do now with it to connect it all to Casino Royale would make it better. Whereas I found Jack's pitch, a big pitch, I guess, to kind of just be like, the movie's long and George Lazenby's not a great actor. And that's kind of all I really got personally out of it. So I went with Joe. Mark, that means you get to do your favorite thing in the world and decide this one.
Yeah, this one's tough. I may be one of the 4 people that actually really like Quantum of Solace. So,
Sorry.
I mean, in saying that, I did go with Joe. But I really liked Jack's hit on Quantum with the Casino Royale. I thought it was a really great point. I feel like beyond that, I'm not really sure I'm not really sure what else like to really like grasp from I didn't really get like why On Her Majesty's Secret Service would really benefit from a remake other than just kind of the general points where I feel like at least Joe I think outlined pretty well, at least like with decent examples of what the exact reason why Quantum would probably be better off or at least better suited at least for a remake with and would honestly would possibly turn out better.
Okay. All right. So that means Joe does win that one, and that Jack needs to hit this next one in order to send it to the bonus. So the category is YA. I'm actually very excited about this question. The Macaw helped me come up with this one. What is the most unintentionally funny scene in a Twilight movie? Jack, you get to come up with, or you get to start first. You're opening first. 1 minute when you start talking.
The Twilight movies are shit. Let's be real. They really are. But they are built around this love triangle of Bella, Edward, and Jacob. And the Eclipse, the whole last half of Eclipse basically centers around that love triangle with Bella, Edward, and Jacob all going out into the mountains to hide away from Veronica. And while they're up there, it's middle of night, it's freezing cold. Bella is freezing her ass off in her sleeping bag in her tent, and Jacob, who's a cold dead vampire, has no body heat, can't provide anything for her. So Jacob comes in the tent and looks Edward dead in the eye and just says, "I'm hotter than you," and then goes to snuggle up to Bella, and it is the most hilarious. Like, you cannot help but laugh during that scene. It's fucking hilarious.
All right, so Joe, 1 minute to open when you start talking.
Trying to find the most unintentionally hilarious scene in a Twilight movie is like trying to find the most wooden performance in a 50 Shades movie. Where do you start? But for me, it's the moment so ridiculous, so over the top, and so downright daft that it's become the go-to meme for the franchise. You named my daughter after the Loch Ness Monster. This moment not only sums up the stupid idea of how love is represented in this series, but the ridiculousness of the lines themselves is only outdone by the delivery, which, from a normally great actress in Kristen Stewart, this performance is just so serious that you cannot help but just laugh at what's being presented. It's not the content you're laughing at, it's everything else. It's the script, it's the delivery, it's the whole context of the moment. You know, it's not a funny scene, it's unintentionally funny.
Time. Okay. 5 minute free form when one of you starts talking.
I actually think your line, the specific line of "I'm hotter than you," is intended to be funny. The scene around it isn't, but the actual line itself, I think, is intended to be a funny line. It's a quip, is what it is.
I disagree, because well, here's the thing. I disagree. It is delivered in the most just like straightforward, most serious tone from Taylor Lautner that I don't think it is. But
Maybe it's because I'm British. Maybe that's why I think it is.
maybe, regardless. Your scene, like you didn't just submit the line of you nicknamed my daughter.
Oh no, it's the whole scene.
Yeah, you submitted the whole scene, and that whole scene is so violently disturbing for me because it's Jacob telling her that he imprinted on her daughter, which and the language in that scene used to that is used makes it so violently uncomfortable. I cannot laugh at it. Like it's he's like, so you know that I don't have any control over this. It's it like, and she's like, you imprinted on my daughter. He's like, I can't control that. Like,
yeah, I think you look at the
like,
natural definition of imprinting. You know, it's what a child does when it sort of sees its parents for the first time. You know, it's that. It's not. That in itself isn't creepy.
And that makes it even creepier that it's something when a child happens when they see their parents for the first time. That makes that so much creepier.
Yeah, but look at the series as a whole. You know, we start off. You know, the series itself already raised problems at the beginning with an 100-plus-year-old man falling for a teenager. So why stop there? You know, that's what the series is. Your moment itself, I actually think you fail to understand sort of the nuance of that. You know, we've had this love triangle sort of going on, but this is the first time in the series where you actually have, this is Jacob showing Bella, I can actually provide for you something that he can't, and it's Edward's realization of that. The quip itself is funny, but the scene around it actually isn't funny. It's actually one of the first times they get the whole love triangle thing right, because we're actually seeing the fact that Jacob can actually provide something for Bella and actually create that rift in the relationship.
That rift is non-existent by the morning. Like by the morning, she has decided that she wants to marry Edward, and like that happens like immediately after. So whatever tension you're talking about in that relationship,
it's still there for Edward.
It doesn't exist.
Edward.
It is so.
He sees it, and he sees there is something I cannot provide for Bella. That's the point. It's not just about how it affects Bella; it's about how it affects Edward as well. Actually, one of the few times in the series where they get the drama of that triangle right.
I disagree that they ever get it right, but that's just me. Look, if we're talking about what is the most unintentionally funny scene, I think Jacob locking eyes with Edward as he snuggles up to Bella and just says, "I'm hotter than you," in the most serious fucking tone, and having Robert Pattinson just have to stare at him and just listen to what the words that just came out of Jacob's mouth. I think that's hilarious. Whereas Jacob sounds like Edward, like there's issues with all the relationships in these movies. Jacob sounds like a pedophile in that scene. It is uncomfortable, and I cannot.
So it's
laugh
not. So you'd
for
say
that
it's not.
one reason.
You'd say it's not unintentionally funny. You'd say it's creepy.
Yeah, it's creepy, not unintentionally funny. It's really creepy.
Well, I'm saying it's unintentionally funny. That's the point I'm trying to make. Look, the line itself around that you name my door after the Loch Ness monster. That is a dumb line. And Kristen Stewart is a good actress. Her over the top delivery just makes it even dumber. And it's a laughable scene because of everything that's going on around it. Everything that's going on it's just a completely laughable scene. The dialogue around it, the context around it is like you are getting angry about this thing that you've already been explained to you is completely out of someone's control, and just the seriousness in which she delivers those lines. It's just nothing about that scene can be taken seriously. It's completely unintentionally making that audience laugh when it should be treated, when the audience, it's intended to be treated as a serious scene. Whereas your scene, it has a good quip, which was intentional, and also creates that more drama, creates that rift, not necessarily between Bella and Edward, but for Edward personally.
You think everything in your single scene is so bad that it cannot be taken seriously? Everything in the Twilight movies is so bad it cannot be taken seriously. It's not anything new in your scene.
Time. Okay. We are going to start with Joe on this one. Joe, you get 1 minute to close when you start talking.
Jack actually managed to choose one of the few scenes throughout the saga which actually succeeds in furthering the love triangle that is the main focus of this quintrology, whatever, in a believable way. It's a scene that finally shows both Bella and Edward that there are things they cannot offer each other. My scene, on the other hand, tries to work itself and play itself off as serious. This is the worst thing that could ever happen moment of drama, but it's just laughable in terms of the story beat, the dialogue, the delivery, the physical performances, the body language. Nothing about this scene can be taken seriously. You look at the way and hear the way Kristen Stewart delivers that sort of the main crux of the line. It's just not done well, and it's just laughable. Nobody memes Jack's scene. You go to Twitter, Facebook, TikTok, and still 12 years after the movie's released is being universally acknowledged. This is the scene that shows how ridiculous the Twilight Saga is. Nobody goes back to the Your Hotter scene. They go back to this scene.
Time. Okay. We are going to go over to Jack. Jack, you have 1 minute when you start talking.
Okay. Look, just if we're going to say that, I'm sorry, I can't get behind calling this scene funny because like Joe's scene funny because if we're being completely honest, it's not. It is deeply uncomfortable, and everything there. Joe wants to act like that that my scene can be taken seriously. It can't. Bella has had her mind made up from movie one that she wants to be a vampire. That's how the first movie ends, with her telling Edward that she wants to be a vampire. And then she keeps telling Jacob throughout New Moon and Eclipse that they can't be together because she's with Edward and she wants to be a vampire. And Jacob can't fucking accept that. And it all comes to a head the morning after it. And in this scene, this is Jacob's last ditch effort to try to get Bella to stay with him, because and he looks Edward dead in the eye and goes, "I'm hotter than you." And it doesn't work. It is terrible.
Time. All right. Gonna bring in the judges. Who Mark looks annoyed.
That was unintentional. Puns.
All right. I am ready. Nick looks like he's ready. When Mark is ready, you can kick it off, Mark.
I just wrote it weird. Yeah, I'm sitting here talking about Twilight. This is how we all dreamed of spending Sunday night. I ended up going with Jack. I mean, I think whenever it came down to it, like as kind of Joe was trying to kind of construct an argument that like the scene that Jack picked, like his hits on Jack's scene, I didn't really buy it, and then like kind of, and I feel like I was kind of lean more like with Jack, how like Joe's scene is just kind of weird, and like there's not really a ton of funny. I mean, every time Jack said "I'm hotter than you," I did chuckle to myself. So like I have to, like I feel like I had to give the point to Jack on that one.
All right, Nick.
I bought it, the hook, line, and sinker, so I voted for Joe. His biggest hit, the question was unintentionally funny, and Joe's biggest hit was, I believe that line is supposed to be funny. I think there was a way to combat that by saying, I think the writer thought they were being funny, and it winds up being funny because it's so bad. So, like, in a way, the intention was off, but I didn't hear anything like that from Jack in countering Joe's argument there. It's all creepy, just to be clear. So funny, yeah. You're kind of laughing at how ridiculous the things that are happening in front of you are. But that was my biggest point. Is Joe was kind of like, your moment is intentionally funny, and I didn't hear anything against that.
I don't like deciding them.
You already wrote it down.
I know. I'm trying to combine all my thoughts because you both said things I didn't think of, but I still have to go with what I voted for. And I voted for Jack. And Nick almost convinced me a little bit that I shouldn't have. Because I upon the initial openings, I agree that I thought Joe's point of, I think the line is supposed to be funny, and so therefore not unintentionally so, was good. I thought that worked for a while, and then I thought that Jack did a pretty decent job, though, actually, of saying of explaining why throughout the movies this could be taken seriously, and that which didn't 100% sell me, but on the other side of things, I never I was honestly a little confused as to what was going on in Joe's scene. I didn't quite I couldn't quite picture it. Jack painted me a really good picture of his scene. And so when Joe was talking about well, this is unintentionally funny, the humor, the performance, or the performance and the script and the dialogue and stuff, I just heard that one line over and over again, and I didn't really know the context, and so I was a little confused, to be honest. It's been a while since I watched the movie, so but I did go with Jack, which means we are moving on. So this is wild. We're gonna get into the final question, which is gonna be interesting for sure. It's in the category of sci-fi / fantasy. And the question is, what non-fandom fantasy character is the coolest? A cool guy. This is coming to us from Joe, right? Yeah, Joe. So, Joe, you get 1 minute to open your argument when you start talking.
Sometimes it's hard to describe what makes something cool, but I'll tell you one thing. You know it when you see it. And Hellboy, specifically Ron Perlman's interpretation of Hellboy, is cool. In all aspects that you would sort of judge coolness by, Hellboy fits that bill. Firstly, you just have that name, Hellboy. Then you get a badass like Ron Perlman in the role. And what Ron Perlman and Guillermo del Toro create over both Hellboy movies is a character that oozes cool. You have the look of the character, the quipping, battling demons, punching Nazis, cigars, big guns. But more than that, you have a character who strives to abandon their hellspawn origin and do something better and be supportive of the ones he loves. And in general, that is a cool thing to do. To not just be what you're labeled as, a Hellboy, and actually strive to be something better, that's also damn cool.
time. Okay. We're going to move over to Jack. Jack, you have 1 minute to open when you start talking.
Jareth the Goblin King from Labyrinth is easily the pick I would go with. I had first pick. I took him. He is played by David Bowie, who is just a walking ball of charisma, and he just oozes cool in every frame he's in. His dance with Jennifer Connelly, he just looks so cool in that scene. This whole world, this whole fantasy world revolves around this one character. He can teleport anywhere. He can shapeshift into an owl. He can create things out of midair. Yeah, he's kind of the villainous character at the end of the day, but he is so fucking cool. You kind of just want to you kind of just want to hang out with him. He is just wild in every way, and when you get David Bowie, who is maybe one of the coolest people ever to live, you've got a cool ass character.
Okay. So 5-minute freeform when one of you starts talking.
Jack, I think you've confused looking cool for being cool. And I think that's the biggest problem here. Jareth is a manipulator, a liar, a stalker, a baby napper, a cheater. You know, all these things, you know, he just throughout the journey, he just manipulates Jennifer Connelly. You know, he manipulates Hoggle. He does all these things like saying to Hoggle, oh no, take her back, trick her, take her back to the beginning of the maze. That's dirty. That's cheating. Just nothing about the substance of his character is cool. He's a loser. He's a poser.
Look, Hellboy is cool. I would call Hellboy cool in the same sense that I would call Amleth the Beowulf from the Northman cool. He's played by a badass actor who has a cool name and is good at beating the shit out of people. But when you look at David Bowie as this character, you can talk about their character all you want. I'm talking about just how you define cool is very difficult. I think when you get David Bowie, no matter what, he's gonna be a pretty cool guy. Stalker, I don't know where you got that from. Yeah, he's manipulative. He's the Goblin King. He's the villain of this movie, but he still just oozes this coolness about him.
Stealing babies isn't cool. Saving kittens is cool because no matter how much of a badass you are, you know, you still take that time. You still do that thing. You know, you have, you know, a gun called the Samaritan, a gun called the Big Baby, whilst holding a baby. You know, these are the things that Hellboy does. It's not just about how he looks. And by the way, how he looks is pretty damn cool. But kidnapping kids isn't cool. You know, manipulating teenagers isn't cool. Cheating at your own game isn't cool. And let's be honest, being defeated just because you're told you have no power over me, again, Jareth is a poser. You know, you can wear as many bulge-enhancing leather pants as you like. You know, that doesn't make you cool. It might make you look cool, but it doesn't make you cool.
I think, look, you're throwing the coolest thing you can do is help other people at line, and like, yeah, that's a good motto or something that you learn in elementary school. But like when you're just looking at the character, let's look at them just not as people but as characters of like what can they do that is cool. Jareth can shapeshift. He can create things out of midair. He can create these crystal balls that can turn into anything. He can teleport anywhere at once, and he's got a really cool cool castle that he lives in. Like that. And plus, I've said it before, I'll keep saying it, David Bowie is maybe the coolest guy to ever live, and he just channels all of that into this performance and this character. Whereas Hellboy,
I mean, you've got that one extra big arm that can deliver one hell of a punch. That's pretty cool. You've got this arsenal of weapons with cool names, like I said before, with the Samaritan, the Big Baby. You've got all these things. You can battle demons. You know, you are the spawn of hell, yet you just ooze this sort of attractability. You know, you bring sort of people to you. You know, Jareth doesn't even have a love interest. You know, that's again, it's the silent. You know, No one wants him, but people want Hellboy. People want to hang around with Hellboy. People want to drink and sing old wartime songs with Hellboy because the guy is cool. That's why you want to hang out with him. The only people who want to hang out with Jareth are his subjects because he forces them to.
If you're gonna try to throw the love interest angle at me, that is not a healthy relationship that they have. It's quite toxic. Hellboy is
Jareth's relationship isn't.
Oh, I never said it wasn't. I'm saying that you're trying to say that it's not. And like Hellboy is a very toxic individual. Like he is essentially a man-child
you look at the Golden Army,
who has these cool powers, whereas and he's a terrible love interest for I can't remember her name.
But you look in the Golden Army, you look at that sort of drunken conversation he has with Abe Sapien. He's talking about how he wants to become more supportive, how he wants to become better. He still wants to better himself, whilst also still just looking the way he does and again, it just exuding that sort of coolness. But Jareth, at the end of the day, although he looks cool, it's style over substance. Whereas Hellboy has the substance and the style to be cool and not, again, pose.
Okay. So we are going to start with Jack on this one. Jack, you have 1 minute to close your argument when you start talking.
When I think of who is a cool character, I don't think of the substance of that character. I think of the style of that character, just to draw on what Joe was saying there. Jareth is a cool character. Yes, he is. Yes, he's a terrible person, but that doesn't mean that you can't be a cool character. He is played by, once again, David Bowie, maybe the coolest individual to ever live. And whereas Hellboy, he's played by a badass, sure, but like when you by Ron Perlman, but like but Joe's trying to paint him like he's this cool, caring guy who loves kittens and has a great love interest and everything. He's a very toxic individual himself. So if you're just going on the substance, they're not like Hellboy's not perfect either. Jareth just oozes this cool personality, this cool look. David Bowie.
Time.
Incredible.
All right, we're going to move over to Joe. Joe, you have 1 minute to close when you start talking.
I think Jack is confused looking cool for being cool. David Bowie is cool, but Jareth is not. There's a reason Hellboy has that love interest and Jareth doesn't. You can wear all the tight pants you want, but if there's no substance behind it, you do come off as a poser. Hellboy has that both style and substance. That's why people gravitate to him. And it's not even subtle. It's not like, if you actually look deeply at the plot, it's nothing like that. Jareth is presented to the audience as manipulative, shallow, evil, and an easily defeated loser. Like everything he does in that movie, if you were Jareth's friend, you would say, "Oh, dude, that's not cool. Dude, that's not cool. You can't do that. Oh, that's not cool." It's not cool. All right, looks cool, but in reality, not cool. You know, aside from how he looks, everything presented to the audience is undoubtedly uncool. Whereas Hellboy, not only do you have that look, you have that big arm, you have the shaved horns, you have the cigar chomping. That's the look of something that's cool. But also you have the substance behind it, the supportiveness, saving babies, saving kittens. Cool.
All right. Bring in the judges while I text my wife back. Beautiful. Okay. Okay. I'm going first. You guys ready?
Yeah.
Okay. Gotta be honest. Throughout everything about David Bowie and Ron Perlman, I don't fucking care. I'm thinking about the character. Granted, part of their performance could bring out the coolness of the character. But just saying David Bowie's cool, therefore Jareth is cool, didn't work for me, and then vice versa to Ron Perlman. So those things kind of went out. I thought that Jack had some really, really strong points in the latter half of the fight. I think he started out a little bit slow where I was like, this is Joe all the way. And then he actually like brought it back pretty good. I thought the fight against the style over substance thing, he started to stumble, but then he was like, he can do this and he can do that and he can do that. I thought those were great points. And then he even brought up like, okay, so your guy like wants to like, you know, like not be as toxic as he is. He's still toxic. Like I thought that was a good point. What won me in the end was Joe. His point at the end of if you were Jareth's friend, everything he would do in the movie, you would be like, man, that's not cool. Dude, that's not cool. I thought that was a really good point. Where I think Joe said it really well throughout the whole fight of like, he may look cool, but everything he does and says and is otherwise is against that. And that Hellboy may have some ugly stuff, but overall style, substance is cool. So I went with Joe, but it ended up a lot closer than I thought it was going to be completely honest. Like I thought Joe was running away with it and Jack was convincing me towards the end. I wasn't sure, but Joe's closing really sealed it for me. So Mark, are we moving on to Nick, or is this it?
Well, I just want to say there was another debate that was settled here today, because I've heard people talk about it before, but stealing babies is in fact not cool. You know, I'm glad we brought that. I'm glad we settled that here today. So I did go with Joe. I think kind of Tim touched on it a little bit. I think Joe kind of played a bit of a smart game, and he kind of made Jack kind of defend Jareth kind of thing more than he kind of was able to attack Hellboy. And I think some attacks he made were good. I feel like he made Jack go on the defensive for the majority of this match. I think that kind of hurt him. I think Joe was able to throw in more attack and defense points here.
Okay. So Nick, your vote doesn't count, but where would you have gone and why?
I want to say two things. One, saying David Bowie is cool, therefore Jareth is cool. It's kind of like saying Steve Carell is funny, therefore the guy in Foxcatcher is pretty funny. So I agree. I also threw same with Ron Perlman, but Jack really leaned on the David Bowie thing more. So I threw that out as well. And then the other thing I wanted to say was that Joe very much did sound like an elementary school teacher talking to a kid, being like, "No, those kids aren't cool. Like the ones that are like skipping class and like pushing people, like they're not cool. Like do your homework. That's cool." And I bought it. So I was like, yeah, it is cool to be nice and save people.
Cool to pay your taxes on time.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that does mean your winner is Joe Farrelly. We are going to move into post-match interviews. Jack didn't make it to the bonus round this time, but had a good game nonetheless. Got a point on Joe. How are you feeling about the match overall today?
I'm just happy I got a point. Honestly, I wasn't feeling terribly confident about the Bond question in particular, or the because just debating Bond against Joe Farrelly sounds like a nightmare, and having now done it, I can tell you it is. And then the YA question, I thought he was done because that was the scene I also would have went with had I had first pick. But yeah, no, I'm just bummed I lost the Oscars question, because that was the one I'm like, great, I've got this. Let's focus on the fantasy one. But no, Joe's a great guy. I don't I'm not upset about losing to him at all. I feel like I feel like I played pretty okay as the better as the match went on, but definitely started out a little rough.
That's fair. That's fair. Jack, you're now at a 3-3 record, so you know still a good record to be at, because with debate, obviously we don't have as many matches, and considering you started out 0-1, but you've done very well in your return since. Who are you wanting to play when you come back? Do you want to be in title contention again? Do you want to take on maybe someone that you've lost to at this point? Like, what are you thinking about?
I mean, it's always fun to be in a title picture. Like, you get to go up against some really good players, but like, it would be nice to play someone different. I'd like to go up against Kastner again, just because he was the one person that knocked me out in my first match, and I feel like I've become a much better debater since then. Yeah, no, literally anyone. But if I want to avenge a loss, that's probably who I'd pick.
Awesome. All right, Jack. Well, we'll see you in the next one. Thanks for being here. I didn't even say one mean thing about him tonight. Man, I'll save it for later. We're going to bring in Joe. Joe, welcome. You won. You are in the winner's circle, and you're headed to a number one contenders match. But before we get there, let's talk about tonight. Your thoughts about the match, a 3-1 win against Jack Pinchuk. How are we feeling?
Yeah, no, obviously it feels good to win. I think, the first time I debated against Jack, obviously I've had sort of the luck of seeing him play already, because just the timing of when this came out and when matches have dropped, get that sort of little bit of a heads up. And just from a personal standpoint, I think this time I did take the debate a little bit more seriously. I did put a little bit more work into sort of the prep and to getting some of those points in. But sometimes, like that's not cool. That's not cool. That sometimes it just something comes to you on the fly and you just run with it.
It's fair. That's fair. Joe, you are now moving on to a number one contenders match, and you will be playing former champion Jacoby Bancroft. Your thoughts on going up against Jacoby in the contenders match?
That should be interesting. Yeah, Jacoby's obviously a former champ. That's going to be no easy task. I might have to put even more prep work in. Well, that should be fun. More fandom questions. I've seen all of those.
Yeah. Joe, I'm excited to see you go up against Jacoby. I agree. I think that's going to be a really fun one. I think you guys are pretty evenly matched, and I think it's going to be a good time. So I look forward to seeing you in your first number one contenders match. We'll see you there in a couple weeks, but we are going to get final thoughts. We're going to start by talking to Nick. Nick, any final thoughts?
My throat hurts. Anna has begun drawing on my board. She got bored.
I saw a heart. That's cute.
There was a heart. There were also some other less family-friendly things drawn. Not cool.
Of course.
But this was very good. I thought Jack held his own in the Bond debate. I voted for him, obviously, and I definitely don't think he ran away with it. Joe ran away with that question. But overall, I think Joe's a very good debater. Maybe it's the accent. Maybe he just says what? Maybe he just says like things and they sound nice, and you're like, oh, I don't know what you're saying, but I bet it's right. So, yeah, good luck, Jacoby. Get an English accent.
Yeah, that's fair. Mark, your thoughts?
This was a fun one. We got talking about unintentionally funny moments in Twilight. And we also had a police officer telling us how breaking the law isn't cool. It's always nice when that happens. I think we're for a good one. Joe and Jacoby, I think should be a good match, and I think Jack's come a long way from where he's been. I'm excited to see. I'm excited to see him in here again. Hoping to be here whenever he does play next.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, that's going to do it for us today at Fanzone Debate. I want to thank Joe and Jack. Thank you to Nick and Mark for stepping in to judge. I have been Tim. We will see you guys next time with another great match. But until then, have a great night. Keep the fries warm.
There we go. Thank you very much. Please come again. We have a lot more groceries.